just looking at the rather unparliamentary language for Sir Keir Starmer. He's just another lefty lawyer standing in our way. And then Rishi Sunak, he's absolutely deluded on migration policies. Who won, do we think?
You're really interested in this, isn't it, Mark, that we learnt a couple of months ago that Sir Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak had each other's numbers. They used to, or possibly still do, text each other from time to time. We sense that there might be a change in terms of the relationship between the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister, following what had been a pretty acrimonious one between Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson. Though looking at that exchange today, you'd have to say maybe that relationship was somewhat broken down. I think in the end, actually, the Prime Minister came out a little bit on top. Sir Keir Starmer really does kind of slightly struggle with this issue, trying to take a hard line, if you like, trying to show that Labour's not going to be soft on this issue of immigration, but in the end actually does not necessarily have a pretty strong line to take in terms of an actual practical plan. Now, that is not to say that the government's plan hasn't got lots and lots of problems with it, lots and lots of potential stumbling blocks down the line, not least of all, will this actually act as a deterrent? Where could these asylum seekers potentially be detained? There's lots of particularly Conservative MPs who do not want it in their constituency. What is the legal battle like going to be with the courts, and where are these third countries that potentially the immigrants could be sent to? We know there's a deal with Rwanda, but at the moment that is on the basis of hosting a couple of hundred, not thousands, let alone tens of thousands. But in terms of the exchanges, the reason the Prime Minister is pretty buoyed by it all is because he thinks he's got public opinion on his side. He's certainly got Conservative MPs. And he thinks that Labour are going to try and block this bill at the end of the day. And thus, it'll be a battle, if you like, between maybe the House of Lords and lawyers and a Conservative government with a relatively popular policy. And he thinks that will play well with the general public.
Yeah, hence the phrases, we are on the side of the people, the people's priority. So clearly that delineation already being marked out. However, interesting that Sir Keir Starmer was challenging or pressing him, when will this actually stop? When will the boats stop? The Prime Minister saying, well, as soon as we can pass the legislation. And this is the political difficulty. Of course, having made the pledge, the promise, he has actually got to deliver it as well.
Yeah, and that's what Keir Starmer's actually got a point where I think at one stage he accused the Prime Minister or the Conservative Party essentially being all talk and no action in all of this. I mean, they've been taking tougher and tougher lines on immigration for years, and the problem not only has not gone away, in many ways it's got worse. And that's why this is a big gamble for the government. If you stand behind a podium that says stop the boats, and then it comes to this time next year and the boats are still coming, well, that's not going to go down terribly well, I don't think, with the general public, who are expecting some form of action on this. I think there is at least an acceptance almost across the board that the small boat crisis does need to come to an end, that people are risking their lives. Labour clearly don't think that the government's plan is going to work. They would rather focus on the gangs. But that's why, as I say, this is going to be a big issue for the government. They have made it a big issue, and in the end they're going to need to prove this works, and that's the greatest risk, because actually we do not know that even if this legislation passed, that its primary function will actually work, that of deterrence, that they really want to deter people from travelling to northern France and getting on those boats. Again, I say it's not entirely clear or definite that even with this legislation in place that people will still not make that perilous journey.